One sensor is probably costing you money right now, and your check engine light won't say a word about it. The upstream oxygen sensor controls your fuel economy more than any other component in your car. When this sensor starts to fail, it doesn't just break. It gets lazy, slows down, and your car's computer never realizes anything went wrong. 40%. That's how much fuel economy a faulty oxygen sensor can steal from you, according to the US Department of Energy. A car that normally gets 30 miles per gallon drops down to 18 with a bad sensor. At today's gas prices, wasted fuel adds up to almost $1,000 a year. Most people don't understand this next part. Your check engine light catches complete failures, not gradual degradation. A sensor can hurt your gas mileage while staying just good enough to avoid triggering any warning. Millions of cars drive around like this every single day. What I'm going to show you today is exactly how this sensor controls your fuel mixture, why it fails without making a sound, the symptoms you're probably blaming on something else, and 2 simple tests you can run yourself with a cheap scanner to figure out if yours is the problem. Most people have no idea what this sensor actually does, so let's start with the basics. Multiple oxygen sensors sit throughout your exhaust system, and location determines their job entirely. Upstream sensors, also called Sensor 1, sit before the catalytic converter. Downstream sensors, or Sensor 2, sit after it. This distinction matters more than you might think. That upstream sensor acts as the brain controlling your fuel mixture. Positioned in your exhaust manifold, it constantly measures oxygen levels flowing through your exhaust gases. Your car's computer reads that measurement and adjusts fuel injection accordingly, adding fuel when oxygen runs too high and pulling fuel back when oxygen drops too low. Hundreds of adjustments happen every single minute. Voltage bounces between about 1/10 of a volt when the mixture runs lean, up to 9/10 of a volt when it runs rich. Healthy sensors cross that midpoint roughly 10 times every 10 seconds, constantly hunting back and forth to maintain that perfect 14.7:1 air-fuel ratio. Downstream sensors don't control anything at all. Their only job is watching the catalytic converter to verify it's working properly. A failed downstream sensor might trigger a check engine light, but gas mileage won't budge one bit. Only upstream sensors touch the fuel. Think of it this way. Upstream oxygen sensors call the plays like a quarterback. Downstream sensors just sit in the booth keeping stats. Why doesn't your car warn you when this sensor goes bad if it matters so much? Your car's diagnostic system hunts for specific failures, and that's the problem. It checks whether the sensor died completely, whether the heater circuit failed, whether voltage went completely out of range. Gradual slowdown doesn't register on that checklist. Aging oxygen sensors don't usually stop working. They get lazy instead. Fresh sensors respond to exhaust changes in about 30 to 40 milliseconds. But 100,000 miles later, response time might drag out to 150, 200, even 300 milliseconds. Those numbers might seem insignificant until you remember this sensor makes adjustments multiple times per second. Slow response means the sensor can't keep up. Old information reaches your car's computer, and fuel decisions get based on what the exhaust looked like a quarter second ago instead of right now. Technicians call this a lazy sensor, and here's where it gets frustrating. Diagnostic thresholds for setting a check engine light stay generous because manufacturers want to avoid false alarms. A sensor responding in 150 milliseconds might still pass the computer's tests, even though fuel economy is already suffering. Your car's computer accepts that sensor data as valid. It has no way to know the readings are slightly off. Slow data still looks like data. The sensor isn't lying, it's just behind. 42 to 58% of all vehicles that failed emissions testing needed oxygen sensor replacement, according to an EPA study. None of those sensors had completely died. Degradation alone caused the problems. What does a lazy oxygen sensor actually feel like when you're behind the wheel? Symptoms creep in so gradually that most people never notice them, and that's the frustrating part. When they do notice something, they blame the wrong thing entirely. Reduced fuel economy shows up first. Your car might burn 10 to 15% more fuel than it should, but that drop stretches out over weeks or months. Nobody wakes up to a half-empty tank one morning. Filling up just happens a little more often, and gas prices take the blame, or traffic, or cold weather. Rough idle appears next. Slight shaking or vibration at stoplights gets written off as the engine just getting old. Hesitation during acceleration is symptom number 3. Pressing the gas produces a slight stumble before the car responds. Subtle enough that a tune-up seems like the obvious fix. Power loss comes forth. The car feels flat and less responsive than it used to be. Age and mileage get blamed. Fuel smell at the tailpipe rounds out the list. Slow sensor readings cause the computer to compensate by running rich, which dumps excess fuel into the exhaust. Some of that unburned fuel makes it out the back, and severe cases produce visible black smoke. Every one of these symptoms develops so gradually that you adjust without realizing it. The new normal becomes normal. 32 miles per gallon fades into a distant memory you're not even sure actually happened. No check engine light appears through any of this. No warning at all. Money just quietly leaves your wallet every time you fill up. Diagnosing this yourself takes less effort than you'd expect. An OBD2 scanner that displays live data is all you need. Decent Bluetooth scanners cost as little as $15 to $30 and connect right to your phone. Torque Pro for Android runs about $5, and standalone scanners in the $50 to $100 range work great too. Live oxygen sensor voltage, fuel trim data, and graphing capability are the features that matter. Fuel trims are what the first test checks. Your car's computer tracks something called fuel trim in 2 varieties. Short-term fuel trim updates several times per second. Long-term fuel trim stores a learned value in memory. Both display as percentages. 0% means no corrections are happening. Positive numbers mean fuel is being added because the mixture runs lean. Negative numbers mean fuel is being pulled because the mixture runs rich. Normal range sits at plus or minus 5%. Plus or minus 5 to 10% stays acceptable, but deserves monitoring. Above plus or minus 10% signals a problem. That check engine light finally shows up when fuel trims hit plus or minus 20 to 25%. 10 to 15% fuel trim deviation can persist for months before crossing that code-setting threshold. Wasted fuel piles up the entire time. Live voltage is what the second test watches. With a warm engine idling, pull up upstream oxygen sensor voltage on your scanner. Healthy sensors bounce rapidly between about 1/10 of a volt and 9/10 of a volt, crossing the midpoint around 450 millivolts, at least 8 to 10 times every 10 seconds. Lazy sensors show slower transitions. Sharp spikes up and down become rounded, lazy curves. Voltage stops swinging to the extremes, hitting only 0.7 instead of 0.9, bottoming out at 0.25 instead of 0.1. Sensor voltage that barely moves or only switches a couple times in 10 seconds means that sensor is finished. A quick throttle response test confirms everything. Hold the engine at about 1500 RPM, snap the throttle open, and voltage should spike high immediately. Release the gas suddenly, and voltage should drop low just as fast. Noticeable delay or slow rounded transitions instead of sharp ones point straight to a lazy sensor. Confirming the sensor is your problem leads to the next question, which is what to do about it. Everyone asks whether you can clean an oxygen sensor. No, you can't. And this idea is basically a myth. Parts manufacturers explicitly warn against cleaning oxygen sensors because too many delicate components can get damaged in the process. Consider this logic. If cleaning oxygen sensors actually worked, an entire industry would exist around refurbishing them. Remanufactured alternators fill warehouse shelves. Remanufactured starters do too. Remanufactured oxygen sensors don't exist anywhere, and that tells you everything. The sensing element hides behind a louvered housing that blocks access, and the deposits causing problems baked on at 1200 degrees. Brake cleaner can't touch them. Carb cleaner, brake cleaner, and other solvents actually destroy the sensor entirely. Skip the cleaning and just replace it. Replacement parts come next, and quality makes a real difference here. 3 brands earn recommendations over and over again. Denso, NTK, which is the same company as NGK, and Bosch. Your vehicle determines which one fits best. Japanese cars like Toyota, Honda, and Lexus run best on Denso and NTK. European cars like Volkswagen, BMW, and Audi prefer Bosch, since that company invented the oxygen sensor in the first place. Ford vehicles often perform best with NTK because motorcraft sensors frequently contain NTK parts inside anyway. Cheap generic sensors deserve avoidance completely. Those $15 or $20 Amazon specials carry a well-documented history of failing within weeks or months, delivering incorrect readings, preventing emissions, monitors from completing, which causes smog test failures, and sometimes destroying catalytic converters, which cost $1,000 to replace. Sensor prices range from $45 to $200, depending on brand and application. Labor adds another $75 to $200. Total replacement lands between $300 and $500 for most vehicles, though luxury and European cars climb higher. Several common mistakes deserve attention. Bank 1 sensor, 1 differs from Bank 2 sensor 1, and mixing up locations happens constantly. Hand starting the threads prevents cross-threading. Over-torquing causes damage. Anti-seize compound should only be copper-based and only touch the threads, never the sensor tip. Codes need clearing with your scanner after replacement, because that check engine light won't shut off on its own. Real improvement shows up fast after replacing a degraded sensor. Owners who've done this replacement report typical gains ranging from 2 to 3 miles per gallon on the low end, up to 7 or 8 miles per gallon in severe cases. Most people notice the difference within the first tank of gas. Your car's computer relearns fuel trims quickly, usually within just a few miles of driving at operating temperature. Numbers make this concrete. 14,000 miles a year in a car that should get 30 miles per gallon, but only manages 25 because of a lazy sensor, means about 80 extra gallons of fuel burned annually. $3 a gallon puts that waste at almost $250 every year. A $300 sensor replacement pays for itself in just over 12 months. Severe degradation causing 20% fuel economy loss wastes over $350 in fuel every year, which means that sensor pays for itself even faster. Fuel savings only tell part of the story. Properly functioning oxygen sensors also cut emissions, protect catalytic converters from damage, and keep engines running exactly as designed. Everything in this video comes down to a few key points. Upstream oxygen sensors control fuel economy more than any other single component, making adjustments hundreds of times per minute to keep engines running efficiently. Degradation doesn't cause dramatic failure. Sensors just get slow, and your car's computer never suspects a thing because the incoming data looks valid. Check engine lights catch catastrophic failures, not gradual decline. 10, 15, even 20% of fuel economy can vanish without triggering any warning light. Symptoms stay subtle throughout. Gradual MPG loss, slight hesitation, rough idle. Traffic gets blamed, or weather, or just the car getting older. Extra fuel burns away every single time you drive. Good news exists, though. Diagnosis takes about 5 minutes with a basic OBD2 scanner watching fuel trims and sensor voltage. Problems become obvious quickly. Replacement stays straightforward and pays for itself fast. Cars with over 100,000 miles that still have original upstream oxygen sensors probably aren't performing at their best. Plugging in a scanner and checking might be worth your time. Thanks for watching. If this helped you, consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next one.